Moving to a headless e-commerce architecture isn't scary, but knowing where to start is. We just built a simple store for our Sanity merch, and we thought, why not share what we built here, like the architecture and the building blocks? Because even though the store is simple, the building blocks are ready for any level of scale. And this is just like a really easy way to ease into headless e-commerce and understand it. But I won't be showing it. Kevin Green will. He built the store, and before this, he built Bagoo's store, moving them away from a Shopify theme to this headless architecture. Then he built Vacation Store, Blue Sky site, and the list goes on. He has so much knowledge to share, and I'm super excited to hear from him. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us and sharing this architecture.
Yeah, thanks for having me, John. Excited to get into it.
Cool. Well, I have a bit of an outline laid out here. We don't need to follow it to a T, but just to kind of like set expectations of what we're going to go over. First, I know you have an architecture that you can show us just to like help us understand how these pieces fit together, like how things are moving. We can keep it pretty high level. Then touch on like why headless, because especially because I mean the store is simple. So like why go down the headless route? After that, I'm curious how you got started, not like CTAs or anything, but like what documentation did you view or what templates did you start with? And, what building blocks did you use? And then we could dive into a demo to just see how things fit together, how things flow, whatever you want to show us. We can go over that. And then lastly, I know it's a little daunting to like move to headless. So maybe if you have any like tips or tricks about starting this, playing around with like the headless side of things in parallel with the current operations without like disrupting the uptime or anything like that. And then one thing I don't have on here is a question I'll ask you at the end. I think it was a question I was asked in an interview at Sanity. So I want to pass that on to you, but I know you'll crush that. So does this outline look good to you?
Yeah, this outline looks great. I can get started with just the architecture diagram. And I'm probably gonna zoom around a little bit just because the text is all super small, obviously. So this is kind of just like a really simple overview, and it's really just meant to like showcase the few interconnected pieces that are really going on here. And it's really just, we have a Sanity Studio and we have a Shopify, like external API. So we're treating Shopify more like an API and less like a platform. And we're just passing data from our Shopify into our Sanity Studio. And we just have these like, I broke this up to two really simple teams. So an ecom team and a content team. And not every team is going to even have these like full fleshed out teams. They might just have like a single founder, and that person is probably just going to be doing everything. But in this case, we have the idea of a content team that you would think doesn't need to interact with Shopify. And I think that's like part of why we start to do things in this way, is so that we can give a content person like a more elevated experience. Like Shopify as a platform for content is not very good. What it's good at is pricing, inventory, currency, Shopify markets, like fulfillment, like all of those things Shopify is really good at. Like I'm not trying to replace Shopify here. I'm trying to like elevate the other aspects of it when it comes to building marketing pages, campaigns, home pages, extending product data. And that all starts with like going headless. So that's what this diagram is kind of showcasing. And we have this little serverless function that we can talk about a little bit later. And this is just like a part of what going headless allows us to do. Like it allows us to like build some of these more robust custom systems that we'd otherwise not be able to if we were just using like a Shopify Liquid experience, for example.
And then I see on the front end there that it's built with hydrogen.
Yeah, so we opted to use Oxygen and Hydrogen, which is the like Shopify preferred headless approach instead of something like Next or Nuxt. And I've been pitching for that more recently, mostly because it's just like it's nice to actually have like a Shopify backed architecture instead of building something on Next, encountering some potential issue or problem with analytics or some like product rendering, and you kind of have like nowhere to go. Like you can't start a Shopify plus chat with someone and be like, hey, like my website doesn't work. And they're like, what's it built on? Next. And they're like, well, kind of good luck. Versus going like, if you use hydrogen and oxygen, you actually kind of have like an in for like, oh, my headless architecture isn't working and it's actually built on the Shopify platform. So Shopify, like, can you actually help me with this thing? And they are a lot more likely to help you and assist you if you run into any like really complex problems. But also if you're getting to that point, you're probably doing something that's like above and beyond anyway, that you're like breaking some like really complex aspect of the platform. So
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the fun of Headless is being able to take it in unique directions that other people haven't gone before. Cool. Well, this makes sense to me. So I'm going to share my screen. And you kind of touched on like why Headless too, of like having those serverless functions that we will get into. Do you have any other comments or like advice or whatever about going headless? Because it is a simple store. I mean, you may have been able to do this on a Shopify theme until you got to the serverless functions or this or that. So like, what are you setting yourself up for by choosing this headless setup, even on a simple site?
yeah, so I think it's twofold. I go headless because I know that as soon as a client gets into the like management aspect in Sanity Studio, they're going to want more. And as soon as like they see those doors open, they're like, oh, like I can kind of do anything. And I don't ever want to, I don't want to be a limiting factor. I think like legacy development in the past was always considered this like technical debt of job security of, I want to get you stuck in this platform that doesn't let you do anything. Whereas a tool like Sanity is like an anything platform. So like you've really opened the doors to what the experience can be. And because it's Sanity is an API that you ingest. We're using React. It's really easy for pretty much any developer that has any experience to pick this up and build a new module, build some new front end, extend a model, add new relationships, add new database interactions. Like all of those things are possible because of Sanity. And the second aspect is Liquid just isn't a very robust platform. And that language is just not very strong, in my opinion. And building something with React is it's so much easier. It's like the most popular language in the coding world. And building as like using React as your baseline is just like it gets you so much further, so much quicker. And you don't have to fight this like weird theme deployment environment that is like honestly really cumbersome. Like as soon as you have more than one developer in a Shopify Liquid theme, it's like kind of a nightmare. It's really hard to build staging environments. It's really hard to build in parallel. Like it's just like it's not great. And I've never enjoyed it. I would much rather spin up a React site and have complete control of my environment like almost immediately. So
Yeah, it's like the workarounds that you have to employ in like a liquid theme. They're not workarounds in Sanity. It's like you can natively do exactly what you want to do.
yeah, and anyone that's ever done a color variant picker on a product in Shopify Liquid knows the true pain and the fact that almost every store on the planet has like multiple colors of a particular product. It's still like it's second rate, that experience from like a developer perspective where you have to upload some image that's like the product name dash color dash whatever and like hijack how it's like how it shows up on the front end. And you don't have to do that if you're doing it with Sanity. You can make it like a true robust experience and true relationships, true colors, and all of those things. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's so important. Well, cool. That makes sense. I think we can move on from why headless and talk about and show us how you got started. This is, I think, a daunting part of going headless is there's so many different frameworks, and you already touched on why you chose hydrogen oxygen, but also, syncing data between Shopify and Sanity, or spinning up your schema so that like it's optimal for these color variants that you talked about. Just in general, can you walk us through where you went and how you got started, what you used to spin up the swag store?
yeah. So I guess I'll share. Should I share my screen? Yeah.
Yeah, might as well. It's good to have some visuals to look at.
Okay. So in the past, I would have probably started, you know, kind of from scratch, or from one of my previous projects. I think I have like the fact that I have so many e-commerce stores, I can kind of just like copy and paste from the previous one to the next one. And that's definitely how I've built like a lot of my websites. But for the swag store, I kind of wanted to like do a hard restart and see what tooling was available to me. And I just went into the Sanity and Shopify hydrogen course on the Sanity website and just went through it start to finish and was able to spin up a new Sanity, new hydrogen instance, connect to it with the Shopify Connect app, pull my data down just like by following this tutorial of like fetching Shopify products, fetching Sanity content, and getting all the way to the visual editing aspect of the Sanity experience with the front end. Obviously the design of the store, that was the part that I actually had to like do some custom code. But in terms of getting products into Shopify, fetching them, getting them into Sanity, getting them onto a front end, I did it all with the Sanity Learn course. And you and or anyone can go through it and probably have a store up in 30 minutes to an hour or so. And you're essentially like you're primed and ready to build anything and everything from that point.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So in here, actually, yeah, like these bullet points might be worth going over. Shopify is already good to go. Hydrogen, I mean, that's just like I would imagine one of the benefits of setting this up, or something that speeds it up, is the fact that the like schema is kind of already defined in Shopify. Like, you're not adding anything there, or at least we're assuming that you're starting with the defaults. So for Sanity Studio, I believe there is a CLI command to like spin this up from a template. Is that also what you used?
Yeah, so I use this template for Shopify, which basically just gives us that additional product and collection schema. And when you add the Sandy Connect app from Shopify, it's mapping products directly to that Sanity Studio schema that's like set up for Shopify. So we have a like Shopify product content type, a Shopify product variant content type, and a Shopify collection content type that all gets mapped kind of one to one to that.
So you go into Shopify, or if you have an existing store, the first time you set up this Sanity Connect app, you'll see all of your products and data inside Studio.
Yep.
And is that something we could take a look at when we get to the demo section?
Yes. We'll
Cool.
definitely take a look at that when we get to the demo.
Great to hear. I'm going to share my screen again. That is an excellent way to get started. It's cool to see that you, as the expert who's done this a lot of times, would go about it the same way as like myself, just like going to this course and, following the steps. And now can we see a demo of this? Open the store, studio, Shopify, like whatever you want to take us through to help understand how things fit together, maybe some automations that you have in there or whatever like cool things you want to show off.
Yep. Let's do a window share screen. Yeah. Yeah. So um, from a front end perspective, because I think everyone likes seeing front end more than they probably like seeing back end, uh, it is a pretty straightforward approach to a store. It's a little bit less traditional. I'm sure anyone that's ever built an e-commerce store is more used to building the like brand story of, what the products are, why the company is this. And because Sanity is already this like established company and it's like actually a platform, we have the Sanity IO website that does all of that. So our e-commerce experience gets to be like really, really raw is like the way I would describe it, I guess. And that's just like, this is the homepage and it's already this like shoppable experience. And there's like kind of no fluff. You can of course like click into a product and see like the title and the price, but there's not a whole lot else going on with this website because it's just like its only goal is to sell products and to show you products. So we've just like taken some liberties to show the products in a handful of different ways. So like this is the collection landing page. The homepage is also just like another collection landing page. And then we do have an about page that starts to like flex a little bit in terms of the Sanity Studio and the modularity that allows um that we are allowed by using Sanity. So seeing the front end, we can hop back over to the actual like Sanity Studio. And you can see that like we have a number of things going on here. We have that homepage that we were just showing, and it's a single content type. There's only one module, and it's just like a product grid and a rich text portable text editor that, of course, has like it's not final copy because this is still in the development cycle, but um, yeah, we can like add another product or grid item, and we can just do, let's see, hat two. And this is where like some of that product extendability comes into play. So this hat, it doesn't have any variants, but if we wanted to, we could use this variant selector to like specifically select the red version of the hat. And that would allow us to show the red version of the hat on the front end. And we also have this color theme, which is very specific to the like actual front end rendering that we see here on the homepage. That's just doing this like background color. So that's something that like, this is where we start to add some of that customization into our studio, specifically to like what the design of our actual site is. And you wouldn't need this like background color necessarily for your own shop. But if you wanted to have a background color, you could add this field or add any number of fields to this experience.
I'm really curious to see what happens when you add something to the cart with that 3-column layout. This cart is unlike anything I've seen before.
Uh,
Is the cart not functional yet?
no, the card is functional.
Oh,
Um, yeah, it's always nice when your demos work. So again, this is very non-traditional. We have these 4 categories for our products. Uh, Obviously wouldn't work for every shopping experience out there, but because we have a limited product offering and we have a little bit of like granular control of like what we're actually shopping for, um, we thought it was I especially thought it was fun to have like this like omnipresent cart that's like always there. Like you're always kind of shopping. You always know what you have in cart and what you're buying. And I've wanted to build a cart like this for like a really long time, and I'm like really happy that in this like very raw shopping experience, we were able to do it. Um,
It's so cool. And it's positioned like how you would wear clothes. So it might influence you to buy more. If you've like got the shirt but no hat, you can like click through and buy a hat.
yeah, and like it feels very it feels like a video game inventory window when you're like shopping in a game, and I thought that was like a really fun experience. And again, something that like because of how raw our store is, we were able to like have a little bit more fun and create this like more unique shopping experience than we could have otherwise. So
It's so cool. I love seeing it. Can we see like how Shopify Connect or Sanity Connect, I always get the names mixed up, but how that works if like you change products in Shopify, like how does that sync process work?
yeah, so let's do. So for anyone that's never used this app before, um, once you like set it up the first time, it's basically like always running, and it's just using a webhook on product update. So when you actually create a new product, we can actually just make a new product, cool product, really realistic. And oh, do I have select existing? Yeah, let's just, make it the socks and $400 socks because they're really fancy. And we can hit save. And dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. And then if we hop over to our studio, we can go to our products, and you can see that already we have our new product, and it's got this like entire Shopify sync column where we have like all of our Shopify specific data. So things like the Shopify ID, the GID, which is what we actually need to like add a product to cart and like fetch inventory. We have the HTML description, and we're also passing things like tag and pricing so that we have access to it. Um, I do a bit of like on my headless front ends, I typically use like Shopify specific things from Shopify. So like things like pricing and inventory and availability, I'm always fetching from Shopify because like that's always going to be the source of truth for like the product specific data. And then when it comes to the like product extendability, that's where I'm really leaning on Sanity. And if we like, given how simple this experience is, we don't have any additional like, product meta information. But if we did, that would all be going into Sanity. So if we had like designer of this shirt, if we had like the materials and like where we source the dye for the shirt, we could put all that information into Sanity and render it on this front end.
Yeah, speaking of that, can we take a look at the code base just like high level to see how things are structured? Because when you talk about making changes to the schema and then, saving content, now we need to render that on the front end. I think it might be worth seeing like how it all comes together. We don't need to dig into the code necessarily, but just like what does the general structure look like and maybe what does that enable with AI?
Yes. Okay, so from a code base perspective, it should actually like resemble kind of the Sanity learn tutorial. So we are building this in a monorepo. So we have two different directories for Sanity and the front end. And I have a number of other things going on because I'm also doing like Sanity serverless functions. And I also just built a Sanity app with the SDK that does some like notification stuff for my Sanity functions. So there's a handful of other directories that if you don't need functions or you don't need the SDK, like you obviously wouldn't have those. But in terms of like the front end for the hydrogen aspect, it's just in this web directory. We have an app. We're using the latest version of hydrogen. So we're using the like React router version of everything. And you can also see here, we have this locale, and this allows us to do localization. So we do have a currency picker on the website because we're not just an American company. So we do allow you to shop based on the currency of your country. And in order for that to work, you need to use this URL structure, which is like a hydrogen slash remix pattern for doing that.
And having everything in this monorepo must open up some cool possibilities with AI. Have you used AI or can talk about like coding front end, back end, all together in the same repo with AI?
Yeah. So that that does open up a lot of windows. And actually the SDK app that I made, I basically took this function that does my Klaviyo marketing campaign, which I can show y'all in a second. I set up a prompt and said like, build me an app using the Sanity SDK documentation that uses my marketing campaign that I built, and basically build me a notification system for that application. And it was able to get me like, 90% of the way and scaffold this like entire app out. And I was able to like extend it a little bit more to do a handful of other things that I wanted it to do. But because all of the code is like, living in this monorepo, it's really easy for your AI agent to, pick and choose the code that it sees and take my functions, inject it into my Sanity Studio, and then also do things on the front end or update the function itself to interact with the app SDK that I built. So there's a lot of possibilities there. Obviously, it can run a little rampant if you don't know what you're doing, but if you're like actually monitoring the code that it's editing, you can stay in control and know what's happening. So
It's really powerful. It's really cool to be able to prompt AI and for it to know your front end and knows your back end. Like it spun up an app for you. Like that's powerful.
yeah, so I'll dive into this. Like it's basically a email marketing function flow, and the reason we built this is like in the beginning when I said like there's not necessarily always a team for that particular task. So if you're a startup and you're a single founder, like you don't have a marketing team or a Klaviyo expert on hand. And this is one of those ways that a developer can empower that founder to do marketing things without, having to know how to use Klaviyo. And the way that I did that is with Sanity functions. And what's actually happening here is I have this content type called emails. And when I build an email, I can, fill out a body. I can add a module that references my products. So if I wanted to send out a new campaign that says like, hey, like winter is coming, come buy sweaters, and I could add our 2 sweaters to the email and basically say like, publish this. And when I publish it, it creates this marketing campaign. And this marketing campaign actually exists in Klaviyo. So we have a template ID, we have a Klaviyo campaign ID. And if you're not familiar with those things in Klaviyo, like that's kind of okay. It's like if your developer has the knowledge to build this campaign, then like you don't actually need to know much about Klaviyo at all, honestly, other than hopefully you're subscribing users to a list, which your developer will probably do for you as well. But once this is actually set up, like I can basically change the status to ready, and it will send an email out with this campaign ID, with this Klaviyo template ID that has like our products and content in it, and it will send it out to all of our Klaviyo users. So this sort of enables a layperson to do Klaviyo things without having any knowledge of Klaviyo. And I think that's really empowering. And that's like part of my, if you don't need to do things in Shopify ethos, like I'm carrying that over in another capacity where I'm like, well, at the end of the day, if the only thing you need to do is set out like occasional product drops in Klaviyo, like why not bring that into the Sanity Studio and do that with like some content types and a couple of like, triggers that say like this status changing to ready. When I actually hit publish, there's a function in the background that's running that's like, hey, did this status change to ready? If so, send out this Klaviyo campaign and send it to everyone. Subscribe to the newsletter.
Very, very cool and impressive. And oh, what is this? A preview?
It is a preview, and I'm not sure why these two images aren't working, but the sweater image is working. So this is what's actually being sent to Klaviyo and what is then sent to your inbox. And this preview is, just another aspect of Sanity that because we're using Sanity, we can do things like this where we can build another pane that shows us what that rendered HTML data looks like. And I, as a content person, can be like, oh, like this more text, I don't want that there. And I can like go back and look. Yeah. Of course, I stumble while oh, I see. It's up here. Yeah. So this more text is something that we would, we don't want it to say that. So we can like actually hit publish, and in the background, we have this function running. So it's sending this update to Klaviyo. It's updating the template there. And then I can also just like, I can preview it here as well and see like this more text is no longer there. And I, as a content editor, can be like, okay, this email is actually good to go now.
Dude, this is so cool. So you get to see like the actual email preview in Studio. So there's no guessing about what it's going to look like, and you can just send it with confidence.
Yeah. Yeah. And this so this is basically just like, it's an HTML template literal, and I'm rendering it here in this preview, and I'm using that exact same template literal in the function. And that's what's also being sent to Klaviyo. So there's no guessing or, I don't, I know for sure that like this is the same email that is going to show up to your inbox.
Amazing. Good stuff. This has been a really good demo. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we move on?
Oh, yeah, let's talk about just like our settings area of the website. So like this is something that isn't as built out as it is on a lot of my other bigger websites, but this is just like another entryway into really getting granular with our customization and modularity. And we have this settings content type, and you can see here that I have very simply a homepage reference, which is what controls like what products are being rendered on our homepage. So if, for example, I had a Black Friday event or a sale or Memorial Day or something like that, and I wanted to just like change this homepage out, I could just replace it with another homepage. And I think that's like a really powerful notion that is really underserved when doing like a traditional Shopify site. So in the traditional sense, you sort of have like, you just have one homepage when you're like doing a Shopify theme experience, and you don't have like revision control. You can't like spin up another homepage. You have to like duplicate your entire theme to edit just your homepage, and then switch your entire theme to this like Black Friday version of your website. Whereas I can go in and I could just be like, okay, I have a homepage, I've got these products, and I want to duplicate it. And I want to create like, you know, Black Friday homepage. And I can just like go in and say like, oh, I don't want to feature the tote bag, so I can just remove it. And I can have this homepage like primed and ready to go. for like, you know, November. And I can like, as a content person, be editing and managing this page, getting approval from the CEO or CMO or whoever needs to be like approving this. And when it's finally ready, I can go into settings and I can say like, okay, let's replace this with the Black Friday version. And like just hit publish. And my settings, because that's like what powers my homepage, will switch to this Black Friday page. And we can actually push that a bit further and we can use content releases, which like we probably shouldn't actually get into on this call, but it's just like another thing that empowers us to schedule content and empowers us as like content users to like build out these like way more robust systems and properly schedule both a Black Friday homepage and potentially a bunch of products that we only want to show up on Black Friday or a bunch of sales we only want to show up on Black Friday. We can add all those documents to like a content release and do even more.
Right. Yeah. And then schedule it so it goes out exactly when you want to.
Yep. Yep.
Very cool. So let me share. That was a very robust demo, seeing how products sync from Shopify to Sanity, how you manage your homepage, switching out homepages, the functions to trigger email campaigns, all really cool stuff. Some people's wheels might be turning. I'm like, I want that. I personally want that. I might be hitting you up for some stuff. But how do you go about building out this site while you actively have like an e-commerce operation going on Shopify right now without causing downtime and making this, a seamless process?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest selling points for going headless, if you already have an existing storefront, is that you don't have to touch that existing storefront. So because we're not working within the theme environment, we can leave the current store completely intact. And as soon as you enable that like Sanity Connect app, we're going to start pushing products into Sanity. And then once we start building our front end with, Hydrogen or Next or whatever your preferred language is, you're going to be building basically a totally new front end in isolation of your current storefront. So you don't have to worry about accidentally publishing a website that's like not supposed to be live yet, or accidentally deleting a homepage on like the live theme. Like it's so isolated from the existing live site that you can build completely independently of it. You could have a dev team managing your current store and another dev team building out like a whole new front end um, on their own. So
Got it. Makes sense. Well, that is how you can work in parallel. And by using that Sanity Learn course, people can like literally spin this up in an hour, see their products in there, just play with it. But if anyone wants to get a custom demo, besides playing with it, I mean, that's a great way to start. We can build something for you, like prototype something to, if you have a certain problem you're trying to solve, want to see it, we can spin something up and gear something directly towards your use case so you can see it. So let us know if you want that. We'll also have the link around here for using Sanity Learn directly to that course. But finally, I have just one last question for you, Kevin. And that is, if you had to describe Sanity in as few words as possible, how would you describe it?
few words as possible. Just one word, modular. That would be how I describe Sanity, and that's how I've always built all my sites. And Sanity, when I discovered Sanity, it became the only option because it did modularity so well that I never wanted to use anything else and never had any reason to go to anything else because it's never limited me in that capacity. And if anything, all these new things that Sandy is constantly releasing has just like enabled me to do even more things with the platform. But yeah, modularity is my one word response to what Sanity is.
Yeah, I respect that. Modularity definitely describes it quite well. Well, on that note, thank you, Kevin, for going over the setup, building this cool store. Excited to get some merch off of it. But on that note, let us know if you have any questions. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you around.
Cheers, y'all.